Everybody. Welcome to this webinar in our series of webinars, and this time focusing on purpose and resilience. For those of you who are used to the fact that this is a series, we're midway through our ROPE series, which is exploring some of the tools that make up our ROPES model. This webinar is all about purpose, as it says, but we've already done regulation, optimism, energy and stamina. So feel free to check out those webinars. They're usually about 20-25 minutes, and there's a live chat role running alongside this session. So if you can't stay to the end, you'll miss the questions, but there will be a link sent afterwards as part of this. So at least you don't have to stay and listen to the whole thing unless you really want to, unless you want to join with the questions. It's always lovely to hear from you. So let's make a move. And this is the plot for today. A bit about us, recap, a deeper look at purpose and how it fits into resilience. And as I say, questions and answers, rocking and rolling on the sort of chat roll. And at the end, some resources that you can get to grips with. All the way through this webinar, you're invited to come to our sites, either qedod.com, which is a site more for businesses, and personalresilience.com, which is our sister site, which is focused on individuals. And on either, you'll be able to access free tools and resources like ebooks, paid for resources, online courses and such like, and access to our podcasts. And our podcast series is getting really, really interesting. We're all about performance. There are a lot of people in the world who think that resilience is a very sort of soft and fluffy subject, just about well-being, but it's not. It's a tough subject, hard subject. It is about well-being, but well-being in response to performance, and we're all about performance here. And we're all about understanding the tools and techniques and growth you need for your potential and your actual day-to-day operation to be better, as it were, to make the best of who you are. And so we help yourself do that, and we use a lot of online resources. But also online and offline training and coaching. And if you want to sign up for those programs, please feel free to go to our sites. So to recap, resilience is all about your ability to bounce back, but also about your ability when times are tough to actually deal with them. And critically, to sometimes dodge the bullet, making sure that we don't create pressure and stress for ourselves or difficulty in the moment because we didn't need to have done in the first place. And most importantly of all, that we build the capacity. When times are good, when times are fresh, when times are groovy, how are we investing ourselves to make sure we've got the resilience to deal with things when they get tough? Because life has a habit of doing that. It has a habit of giving us surprises. And purpose is one of the critical things for us in resilience, because whatever's going on at the moment, we're always happier if we know that we're working towards something that matters in the longer term. Whatever the short-term difficulty, it can be countered by that longer-term satisfaction that even if it is difficult, and the fact that it is difficult, whatever we're facing, it's part of delivering something that's bigger for us. So purpose fits in, as you can see in the ropes toolkit, regulation, optimism, purpose, energy and stamina. It fits in by taking our potential around these sort of big areas of physiology, emotion, cognition, personality, and turning and transforming those into performance. So in other words, you can manage yourself better. You know yourself better. You know the rhythms of yourself and your performance and your behaviour, the sort of triggers that fund your behaviour. And you can start to think about other people as well, the people that hack you off or inspire you, and you can spend more or less time with those people and understand how to get more or less from those people. And also face particular situations. Are the times when you find yourself in a kryptonite situation where all your power, personal power, seems to have vanished. And how do you deal with those things? So purpose, fundamental part of what we're about. And I remember hearing purpose is defined as knowing the why. So you need to know what you want to do and what is your purpose, but you need to know why are you here? What's the point of you? And it's a bit deep perhaps, but we need to know some of those things before we get onto the how and when. So let's have a little think about these sorts of areas. So the why. And what helps us in all of this is this idea of confirmation bias. So according to Daniel Kahneman, who wrote the book on what they call heuristics or biases, these are sort of mental subroutines that we have. Confirmation bias is one of those that says, if you expect something to happen, the brain operates in a way to help you spot things to make those things happen. So if you decide that you don't like something, whatever that person, or like someone, for example, whatever that person does will be because you don't like them. If they give you money, it's because you don't like them and they're just trying to buy favor. So the brain has this lovely subroutine that allows you to find what you want. And Richard Wiseman talked about confirmation bias in his book about luck. And this idea of confirmation bias. So if you know what you want, and also if you know what you don't want, the brain will help you find it. And this sits behind this idea of goal setting. And while everyone bangs on about goals and goal setting and such like, and I'm not a massive fan of huge amounts of goals, but I do recognise the fact they work. And one of the reasons they work is because of this idea of confirmation bias. Once we start to think about something, we notice it everywhere. It is interesting. If you start thinking about blue Audis, and you walk, get in the car and drive, all you'll see for a little while, blue Audis, is because the brain's spotting it for you. So confirmation bias, it can work against you and it can work for you. So let's use it for us. And one of the things that begins this process is our idea of self-awareness. We need to know our purpose. We need to know ourselves. We need to know ourselves relative to other people. We need to know that, for example, we have the right to have goals. We need to live a life that we have the right to be for ourselves. Some people say to me, well, I can't design a life for myself because actually I've got other people I've got to look after. And you do, and you have other people to look after at the moment, but that doesn't mean that you have them forever. And we all have temporary problems which restrict our capacities to do the longer term goal, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have one. And if the reason for not doing some of these actions is because you're not entitled, or you sort of think you're not worthy, then you need to have a strong talk to yourself, because you need to be aware of those inner words that restrict and help you. Because remember, everything you believe has a habit of programming the brain to deliver for you. And so certainly in terms of your purpose, you need to think about your habits in your body to make sure that you are taking into account a holistic view of what you want from your life. I remember years ago someone saying to me, oh, I'd love to be an astronaut, and everyone in the group sort of howling with laughter because this was clearly not possible because the guy was 35. And he said, well, you never get an astronaut program. And the story doesn't end that he did and he is. It's not that. It's the fact that people do. People are in their late 50s now and going into space. So what we once thought was impossible is now possible. And in the future, the things that we think are impossible today may well be possible tomorrow. There's all sorts of advances. So, dreaming big is no bad thing, because actually it's better to dream big and get somewhere than to dream small and to achieve that. Because you've got to think what it's all about. And self-awareness is there for a reason. It's to help you. It's your friend. It's your ally. It's knowing yourself is absolutely... I'll stop clapping now, because I'm aware of doing that now. But it's there to help your performance. It's there to make sure that you get from your life the sorts of life you want for yourself. But first of all, you need to know what that is. So let's build some purpose. You need to know your why. And you need to know your why 5 times. Why am I here? What's it all about? What are people going to write on my gravestone when I've passed on and such like? What is it all about? Why am I here? Am I here to serve? Am I here to deliver? Am I here for a life of unbridled hedonism? It's an understanding that you know your place and why you're here. Your fundamental sense of purpose. What's your difference? What's your superpower? What is the difference you can make? What's the massive superpower that you have that allows you to deliver that? Now, for some people, this is weird stuff, isn't it? But you need to build that self-awareness to go and think about that. What is my difference? Now, I'm not talking about, a difference being unique. A difference is a difference from other people. Okay, so it may well be that other people have your difference, but that's fine. It's difference from the people around you. And the superpower is relative. It's a superpower relative to the other sort of strengths that you have. Because you need to build your beliefs and values. Now, your beliefs are the things that you hold true, and the values are the importance you attach to them. And what's interesting about beliefs and values, you should expect these to change over the course of your life. It is quite interesting to meet 18-year-olds and then meet people in their 60s and be surprised that their beliefs and values and the why would be different. Because it's madness, isn't it? You expect things to change through life. But it is also the case that we have to change the why, the beliefs and the values at different points in your life. So, for example, if you've achieved all there is to achieve. So, for example, I meet people in the performing arts who've achieved all they can achieve or want to achieve in their early 20s or early 30s. But what's next? Do they just carry on doing that over and over again for the rest of their lives? Or do they change and stop and move on? And that's about knowing your why. Why are you here? If that's okay for you and that's all you want to do, then fine. But for a lot of people, they rust because they're under exploiting their potential, how good they could be. So knowing your why, asking yourself why, what is my purpose and why? Why is it there? Why am I here? What could I achieve and why? It's interesting that in project management, we use the word why. We call it a decision tree. We ask why 5 times to get the root cause of things. So I want this why. Then you get an answer why. And I get another answer why. So start asking yourself why. Understand the why of what you do. In fact, I think there's a couple of books written about this. There's a why tree, obviously. And there's another one. I'll put the link to the show notes. But it's an interesting book about building your purpose through asking why. We haven't got time on a quick podcast like this, but in our guided programs and guided coaching, we spend a bit of time in this area. And let's have some goals. The goals are having described the why, the what you want to achieve. And there's a difference between a goal and a dream. A goal is a proper process to turn inputs into outputs. And dreams are just things you think about. And sometimes dreams are things that you really fancy doing, but you're never really going to take action on them. Now, you have to think about whether those dreams could have action taken on them. So, for example, I've got a particular thing that I didn't do in my life, which I sort of kick myself for not doing. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have a bash, and I'm going to see whether it's actually something I do really want to do or not. And then if you scratch the itches of some of your goals, they're really interesting. You find out actually it's not really what I wanted. It's not really for me. But if I didn't take action on it, then I would never know. So visualize the outcome in a goal. Really, yes, visualize the outcome. Sit down, write it down. What does it look, feel like, smell like? There's tons and tons and tons of stuff out there about goal setting. People have written, bookcases full of books on goals. So there's tons out there. So I'm not going to spend too long on this. I think the key, though, is to work out the difference between your short and long-term goals. And so you get this idea at the bottom of the screen, the output versus the process goals. If you have a long-term goal, that's the output. And the process goals are the sorts of milestones that get you there. And if the process goals are wrong, not wrong, but if they're under-ambitious, it might take you longer to achieve that long-term goal. If they're over-ambitious, you might never achieve it because those might not have been realistic given the other things that you've got in your life. We could all pretty well achieve anything we want, but we have to recognise that there are trade-offs in our goals. There's trade-offs between what you want today versus what you want in the longer term. So the things you want in the longer term are usually the why, and the shorter goals are usually the way that you're going to get there. And decide what you want. Decide what you want. Now, for some people, sitting down writing a list of what they want is a real problem. But they have no problem sitting down writing a list of what they don't want. And sometimes it's worth thinking about that. There are people who are wired the wrong way around. So instead of having a list of things to do every morning, have a list of things not to do every morning. And, that sort of way of looking at the world upside down is really great. It just means there's an extra hop between deciding what you don't want and therefore what do I want in its place. So it's just an interesting hop. Years ago, I remember doing some life planning with an old mentor of mine, and he made me do an exercise that I'm going to talk about the next page. And I remember waking up one morning, going to work and feeling really, 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 really happy and sort of really fulfilled. And I pulled out my life goals because I wondered if I had anything to do with that. And I was absolutely living the life I had described for myself. And it was a real shock. And I then made a terrible mistake because that was the point where I should have thought, how do I push this forward? And I didn't. So what happened is I continued. And then, of course, what happens is you go down the slope because there's nothing else. And so you risk having these sort of peaks and troughs in your life where you are really sort of on the curve of knowing where you're going and knowing what you want, and then sort of coming off it afterwards. Again, we talk about this in with some of the elite performers. They've built up to a performance or an athletic event, and afterwards they flop down the other side, and then they've got to go again. And you can see this as actually performance and renewal, or you can see this as a missed opportunity to keep your performance at a higher level. The fact is, the greater and more stretching your purpose and your dreams and your goals are, the more fulfilled a life you have. And it is your life, so it's up to you to decide what you want. If you don't want to have any, guess what? It's entirely up to you. But it does help your resilience, because this idea of heading in a direction, heading with a sense of purpose somewhere, it's very inspiring for yourself. It's very inspiring for others around you. There's nothing better than working for a manager or working with someone in a team who really knows where they're going. And sometimes these beliefs in themselves are also religious beliefs, for example. I remember meeting someone who was very, very religious, and actually was an HR director of an insurance company. And he left to become a priest. And he had his own church and such like, and he worked in a local area. And whether you believe in religion or not, or whichever branch of religion you're in, is irrelevant, really. The point was that purpose, that sense of serving, that sense of belief, and everything that flowed from that was highly inspirational. And I remember talking long into night with this person about their life and this change they'd made, and the physical and psychological happiness that person had as a result of it. They'd never been happy in the job as an HR director, in who would? That's the joke, I suppose. And but what they found was they'd had to do that to get them to the place they needed to go. So their short-term goal had got them into a career that got them a long way as fast as possible, and they'd sort of put their sort of longer-term goals on hold, or they'd subsumed them within another set of goals in order to get what they needed. And the key thing with goal setting is that resources or support. And there's a lot of accountability websites. There are a lot of places where you need to socialize your goals, because you need to tell people what's going on so they can support you and help you and push you, and everybody, everybody wavers. And so knowing that there's someone out there who's on your side can help. People who have professional coaches often do this. I mean, I have a coach who regularly, holds me to account and says, well, what have you done? And why did you do that and not this? And, you'll talk through it, and then you can think to yourself, well, how much of that is just an excuse, and how much of that was actually a genuine reason for doing something? So we have goals to help us use our confirmation bias, to give us a sense of perspective where we are. A longer-term goal is to look back at a life plan, really. And I know this says career task, but it really is more about seeing your life as a career and thinking about your life as a career. So look back in increments, say 5-10 year increments, and draw a chart. Now, if you're older, the chart will go back further, and if you're a youngster, you don't need to, you need to have maybe 1 year increments. But, draw a line in the middle, which is the years, going backwards, 5, 10, 15, 20, for example, and then put when you're at your top of the game and when you're at the bottom of the game, and you'll notice peaks and troughs. It's really quite staggering. And you'll notice sometimes that if you're in the middle of a sort of a resilience problem, your sort of resilience is compromised, you might be just at the bottom of one of your troughs, or heading down. Which means that self-awareness of your sort of pattern, your natural rhythm of your life, which is only natural because you're unconscious of it, you can do something with that. And I have to say that sort of this timeline sort of planning is really powerful. The number of times you look back with people and you say, really? I'm heading downwards. And you're heading downwards because you're doing it unconsciously rather than making a choice. And then one of the things you want to do is look forward and just write a big list. All the things you want to do, have or be. And if it's the novels of Jane Austen, you can write the novels of Jane Austen. You don't have to write every single one. If you want to write every single one, you can. But it's really interesting how people, when they start to do this list, they can think of 5 or 6 things, and then they stop. And they don't know what they want to do. They don't know what they want to have, unless it's money. And they don't know who they want to be. And that's really quite a shame, isn't it? Because if you're not clear, then you're not optimizing your brain to deliver it for you. And it's also interesting to think through, well, why don't I? Why don't I know what I want to do, be, or have? Who says I shouldn't know that? And people again think, well, I've got kids and they're growing up, and you have to reappraise these different times of your life. Again, if you're 22 and just come out of university, this will look different to someone who's in their 50s, where their kids have just grown up and gone to university, for example, or they've just left university. It changes. These are living documents that we have, that we update and use on a regular basis. I mean, businesses do this on a regular. It's called having a strategy, don't we? But we don't have our own life strategy. And then when we join an organisation, have a job, we find we have a job where it doesn't deliver any sort of long-term benefit for us. We maybe work in an organisation where it doesn't seem to meet our values, and have horrible people around us. And then people stay there and say, well, I've got no choice. Well, of course, you do. And we all have the choice to live the life that we deserve. And the life we deserve is making, in my view, is being the best you can be. So, we're not trying to be to woo about this. It's just about being pragmatic and saying, in terms of resilience, that's a better thing to start off by saying, well, I'm unworthy, so I shouldn't bother. But then thinking forward again, so we've looked back, we've done an audit of where we might want to go, and then we need to plot these things in. Where do you want to be 5, 10, 15 years ahead financially? Not what job am I going to do, but financially, family-wise, relationships, wider relationships, health, fun, socializing, hobbies, career. Because all these things, when you start to plot them in, begin to correlate with item number 2. Because you want to have these things to drive item number 2, don't you? If you have and sometimes you need to say, well, if I've got a job that's very, very well paid, I don't really enjoy it, but and then therefore, how does that job then give you some of the things that you do want to have, be, and do? You make what you have work for you if you know what you want. And I meet lots of people who find it very hard to make decisions because they haven't got like this overwhelming purpose. They don't really know where they're going. So they find it hard to think about what they want and how they're going to get it. And expectations are the key here. What you expect for yourself is really important. And actually in parenting it's interesting, and in managing people it's interesting. What are our expectations for ourselves, but also relative to the people we have? Do we expect enough of people around us? Are we in a society where it's okay to just try hard but not actually achieve much? We have rights. These are the rights we give ourselves, and we balance our perspective with our rights and expectations. And isn't it great when you achieve a goal and you get some satisfaction, and that's the point where you kick on and go to the next level. Endless series of living the real life that you want for yourself. Not the life that someone's telling you should have, but the life that you have entitled yourself to live because you've got a strong sense of purpose. Oh, I get very excited when I talk about purpose. So as you'll see a book on the screen, this is our first book actually. There are more. You can go onto our websites, qedod.com or personalresilience.com, and access free and paid for versions of all sorts of material. You can access online coaching to people like myself who can work with you to develop your resilience, and those of your families and work colleagues, whatever, we're there to help. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Hope you got something from it as well. I'll be watching the questions rocking and rolling, and we'll be giving answers as we go. And meanwhile, as I said, this was a part of a series. Please check out the other webinars in the series, and join in at qedod.com, Resilience News, or personalresilience.com. And until the next webinar, thank you very much for your company, and have a good day.